News.
Very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Broom with the CBC Evening News, where our top story comes from the lower house. Now, Prime Minister Frundle Stewart says people should not be tied to their criminal records. He says many times offenders have served their punishment and should not continue to be punished for the rest of their lives. He was speaking during debate in Parliament on the second reading of the Criminal Records Rehabilitation of Offenders Amendment Bill 2017.
They cannot, day after day, week after week, long after they have served the sentence imposed on them by the court, or long after they pay the fines imposed by the court, still continue to suffer punishment, indirect punishment, but still very effective punishment because of the constraints which the society imposes on them. In the best of times, long after people have been acquitted of offenses because of the highly personalized society in which we live, they're still treated as though they were convicted of the offenses.
Transport Minister Michael Lashley has made several suggestions on how the criminal justice system could be made more efficient. One is increasing the powers of the magistrate so they can adjudicate on matters that are normally done at the High Court.
What we can do, Mr. Speaker, make them hybrid offenses, sir, that it can be triable either way, so that the magistrate will have a jurisdiction to deal with them, sir. Increase the powers of the magistrate, sir. And they need, sir, Mr. Speaker, sir, and we need, Mr. Speaker, we have to look at case management, sir. The preparation of files, sir.
The St. Philip North MP, who himself is a lawyer, also suggests moving to specialty judges as a way to speed up the process. Well, we turn now to the upper house and hear that CLICO policyholders are one step closer to getting what's owed to them by the failed insurance company. That's because the Senate passed the CLICO Life Insurance Limited Guarantee Amendment Bill 2017, clearing the way for the requisite funds to be put into the new company, NewCo. That company was set up to take over the assets and liabilities of CLICO. In leading off debate, Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Senator Jepter Ince, described the amendment as a bold initiative. He says despite not being at fault for the collapse of CLICO, the Democratic Labour Party has sought to bring some financial stability to Barbadians.
Government say to the investors in CLICO, we are going to take on this responsibility. This is what we are going to do. And why the amendment is necessary, we are going into what I term another phase. Because CLICO International Life, as I said, is a challenge entity. You cannot underwrite policies with an entity that is financially challenged or not viable. And government says we are going to establish the entities of NLICO, and then we are going to have a new entity, a new insurance entity.
Senator Ince notes that CLICO, in its heyday, contributed to Barbados in many ways. He thanked Barbadians for their patience, telling them the amendment is the finishing touch of the final phase of an era.
I cannot help but say that when this country is challenged, it seems that when these things are upon us, the Democratic Labour Party is in office. If we had to reflect even back in 1994, the Democratic Labour Party, as a result of the collapse of Great Northern at the time prior to that, we put in place rules and regulations to manage the financial sector. The Democratic Labour Party.
Leader of Government Business in the Senate, Senator Maxine McLean, says there are lessons for government to learn from the CLICO affair. She reiterates the matter is still before the court and the government cannot make any judge move swiftly on the process.
It has not been the tradition in Barbados, and it certainly is not and will not be the tradition of this administration or future administrations of the Democratic Labour Party to try to push the court. But Barbados is small enough that any person who is part of the judicial system can see the consequences of what happens. So I would want very clearly for people to understand that it has taken long, as we have said, and as we heard from Senator Abrams. We know that a lot of Barbadians have been affected. I know of many people who have been affected.
Opposition Senator Wilfred Abrams, although supporting the amendment, is not pleased with the length of time the CLICO matter is taking. He says it has caused distress to many Barbadians and suggests an investigation should be ongoing.
The negligence that resulted in this financial disaster that affected almost all of us is nothing short of criminal. And were we anywhere else other than Barbados, people would be in jail. People would have been slapped with some very heavy charges and would have been tried. So a lot of the issues and the bad feeling that people have in relation to this, Madam President, is not simply that it happened, but that it happened and no one appears to be held accountable for it.
Senator Abrams also wants to see people who have benefited in CLICO's last days be held accountable and funds traced. He has urged the authorities to be transparent as money owed is paid out.
There's been too much smoke and too much confusion and too much muddling of the waters and mystery with what has gone on with CLICO so far. At least if we are making a good faith gesture and attempt to pay back some people or to put them as close as possible to the position they were in before it collapsed, let it be fair. Let no one stand above anyone else in terms of repayment. Let it not be that big ups get their money first.
An independent senator has put the delay in resolving the CLICO matter down to a culture of non-action in Barbados. Senator Professor Sir Henry Fraser told the upper house he does not blame the government for the length of time it has taken for policyholders to get their money, but he hopes once the amendment clears the chamber, the process for refunds will be quick.
We've had 8 or 9 Christmases taking place. So this may be a Christmas gift for some people, or perceived as a Christmas gift, or as a New Year gift, Madam President. I think it would be wonderful if it could go through in a matter of weeks so that people can really see this after 10 years. They've been disappointed year after year. Let us see it happen now. Let us overcome this implementation deficit disorder, which is the most iniquitous chronic disease from which Barbados suffers. Let us translate words into action, Madam President.
Professor Fraser is also concerned about what will happen to the agricultural land, including properties on them. Much of the land owned by CLICO is in St. John, and Professor Fraser says it's a shame those lands have fallen fallow. He says the buildings on them can be put to good use. We'll take a break here, but when we come back, there is more news. Stay with us.
By popular demand, Barbados Lumber Company, Waterford and Spikestown will be repeating their 20% discount store-wide sale this Friday and Saturday, and extended to Sunday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Waterford and 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Spikestown. Get in the Christmas spirit with 20% discount from Barbados Lumber Company this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Terms strictly cash. This offer does not apply to cement and already reduced items.
Barbados Lumber Company.
The doctors are live and online.
We have another caller.
Concerned about chronic illnesses? Just ask.
I was getting like a sharp pain. It's not cramp.
Or the right medication and side effects for your ailment?
Common drugs that treat glaucoma are beta blockers, and they also slow down the heart rate.
Get advice on how to eat right.
If you eat a lot of food like eggs, of course, got sulfur in it.
Just ask.
You have good bacteria that exists in your stomach. And one of the bad things is when you introduce antibiotics, it causes the alteration in these bacteria.
CBC presents Medical every first and third Friday at 9 p.m. on CBC TV 8 with Rosemary Allen. They are your lifeline.
Brought to you with the compliments of Glucerna, Hunger Smart.
behalf of the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation.
As of today, the Boscobel Primary School will be known by a different name. It will now be called the Elliott Belgrave Primary School, after former Governor General Sir Elliott Belgrave. Sharika Griffith has more.
It's been a busy year for the Boscobel Primary School. The school began the year by celebrating its 125th anniversary with a church service at the St. Philip the Less Anglican Church. Just a few months later, the school would again reach national acclaim when it made its debut at the annual BMEX trade show. During that time, the school impressed judges and patrons with its invention, a handheld vacuum cleaner. And as the year wraps up, the school is once again in the limelight as it successfully petitioned the Ministry of Education to have its name changed. It will now be known as the Elliott Belgrave Primary School, after former Governor General Sir Elliott Belgrave, who attended the Boscobel Boys' School from 1936 to 1943. During a renaming ceremony held in the school hall, Sir Elliott lauded the early education he received at the school for his success and that of other former students.
The Boscobel Primary School is a classic example of the transformational power of the neighborhood school. For there are countless other persons, along with myself, who bear testimony to the fact that this small rural primary school has consistently taken students from ordinary working class backgrounds and propelled or catapulted them to the elevated positions of power, prominence, and prestige.
The ceremony was attended by several dignitaries, including Acting Governor General Sir Philip Graves. In his address, Education Minister Ronald Jones said the renaming is a fitting tribute to one who has always held education of the country's youth in high regard.
It is only apt that the accomplishments of a craftsman of our faith is immortalized in the place which provided the foundation underpinning his advancement in society through education, pivotal to the lives and to transforming lives. The renaming of this school is, in my opinion, a fitting and worthy gesture for the immeasurable, commendable, and altruistic acts of this noteworthy Barbadian.
Among the highlights of the ceremony were the unveiling of a plaque to mark the occasion, as well as a new school sign. The school's choir offered several renditions, including the new school song. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Thanks, Sharika. Well, classes at the newly formed Massey United Insurance Driving Skills Academy will begin from next January. The institution, which was officially launched this morning, is seeking to sharpen the defensive skills of drivers and ultimately reduce the number of road accidents and fatalities in Barbados. Minister of Transport and Works Michael Lashley believes it complements government's recent amendments to the Road Traffic Act. He also foresees it being used to help delinquent drivers.
It don't make sense slapping a fine on them, sending them to prison, but you have to give them some part of the sentence that they go back out there and they come and spend at least 5 or 6 months within this academy or some other academy, and then after that, once we are satisfied that they are fit to go back on the road, then we would accept that. And that is, I believe, the way forward in terms of road safety.
Instructor and course designer Steve Deeks says the course is different and will explore techniques that drivers can use to maximize safety when they're behind the wheel.
When you get to the racetrack here, professionals experienced both in road driver and defensive driver training and the worlds of competition will be taking delegates and pupils out onto the smooth tarmac here and teaching them about preparation, teaching them about vision, looking further ahead, preparing for corners, balancing the car, throttle, braking and car control techniques that would simply be unsafe to practice on the public highway.
Well, despite the strides made in educating Barbadians about breast cancer, approximately 52 women are losing the battle against the disease every year. Medical coordinator with the breast screening program, Dr. Shirley Hanneman Jagru, says this equates to 1 death per week from the disease. The breast screening program of the Barbados Cancer Society continues to help with the fight against breast cancer, with over 90,000 women to date having passed through its clinic. According to Dr. Jagru, the number of new cases diagnosed in Barbados follows the global pattern of increasing in numbers yearly.
As awareness in the population grows, the number of women attending for screening increases. Therefore, if you get a larger number attending for screening, you will get more positive cases. And that explains why there are more positive cases in the island. The good news, however, is the mortality, that is the death from breast cancer in Barbados, when compared with other cancers, has remained the same. It has remained between 9 and 11% from since 2007. So for almost a decade, I would say it has been controlled. And that's all due to early detection.
Dr. Jagru was speaking during a donation ceremony as $214,000 raised through the 6th CIBC First Caribbean Regional Walk for the Cure was presented to the Barbados Cancer Society's breast screening unit. The event, heralded as the largest fundraising walk, saw an estimated 18,000 people take part in the Barbados leg and thousands more across the region. This year, however, the organizers fell short of the regional target with just under $450,000 raised. Trustee with First Caribbean International Comtrust Foundation and co-chair of the Walk for the Cure, Mark St. Hill, says this is due in part to the impact caused by Hurricanes Irma and Maria across the region.
Despite this, we are happy to say that all 5 of those countries have donated funds that they raised prior to the passage, and they continue to be highly committed to the program. And we also like to salute them that they have gone through a personal disruption, but yet they saw it fit and important to continue to raise money for Walk for the Cure. I thank them all.
Meantime, Natalie Manning shared her story as she battles with stage 2 breast cancer. She was diagnosed with a tumor in one of her breasts during a routine checkup, and the road has not been easy since.
I could not believe it. I think all of the normal questions and emotions ran through me. Why me? It's got to be a mistake. Followed by anger, sadness, fear, and loneliness. But I have amazing friends and family. Especially my father, Busy Williams.
The parent company of Mount Gay Distilleries, the French alcoholic beverage company, Remy Cointreau, has shared its vision for the Barbados Rum Company. Though the company is not yet where Remy Cointreau wants it to be, Chief Executive Officer Valerie Chapolo-Floquet revealed a number of big projects are expected to come on stream. She says Remy intends to be enterprising. The revelation was made as Mount Gay Distilleries rewarded long-standing employees for years of service.
So be prepared, because you will need a lot of energy, and we all will need a lot of energy, but we have a lot of projects, and we are going to be very ambitious in the coming years. So I think these are already 2 very exciting and great news. I would like to thank you for your commitment. I know that you're all very close to Mount Gay and to the group. The tenure of most of the team demonstrates that effectively you're extremely loyal.
Well, Remy Cointreau is also reporting success in its operations.
Very few days ago, and we are doing well. On our brands, we are almost at plus 10% after 6 months. So congratulations to all the brands and all the countries. It's an extremely good result, and we are almost on par with the budget, which was quite an aggressive budget. So first of all, the group is doing well. We are catching up, and we have a lot of projects absolutely everywhere in the world and on every single brand.
The International Business Division has unsuccessfully sought clarity from the EU as to why Barbados was included on a list of non-cooperative tax jurisdictions. Describing the move as unfortunate and unfair, International Business Minister Donville Innes says prior to the list, his ministry had been in constant contact with the EU in an attempt to become compliant.
Barbados therefore inquired of the EU by way of correspondence sent by midday yesterday as to which regime Barbados has not clearly committed to amending. The International Business Division Director also telephoned the EU this morning seeking clarification, but to date no response has been forthcoming either from the telephone call or email of yesterday. It is the view of the Barbados government, therefore, that to include Barbados in Annex 1 listed as a non-cooperative tax jurisdiction is extremely unfortunate and unfair.
Speaking during a press conference, Minister Innes says in addition to keeping stakeholders abreast of any further developments, his ministry will now be petitioning the EU to revisit its decision.
We will dispatch a detailed correspondence to the European Union this week, requesting an urgent review of their rather unfortunate listing of Barbados as a non-cooperative jurisdiction. Secondly, being mindful that our region will continue to be under scrutiny and attacks from other regional groupings and multinational organizations, Barbados will once again request a regional dialogue on the matter with the goal of establishing a high-level regional team of experts to engage with external parties on behalf of the region. And we really expect that CARICOM will finally take the lead on this.
Well, still to come, we'll take a look at stories making headlines across the region.
Can you crack the court's code? Spend $799 or more and you could win $15,000. Check courts on Facebook and Instagram or your digital phone for your weekly Crack the Court's Code clue. Each week until December 22nd, you could get a chance to crack the safe. But to crack the 3-digit code, you must know the clue. So listen out. Plus, the Court's Crack the Code crew may be on the road near you where you could win cash and prizes on the spot. Courts, bringing value home.
I always knew you were dirty so-and-so.
What would people say when they see me with you? What if the congregation finds out?
I'm sorry, but you can't work here anymore.
You can't live here with that.
You can't play with us.
Hello? You hear she got the pug?
Rise above the ignorance.
It's time to kiss stigma and discrimination goodbye. Mwah.
The St. Lucia government has assured the European Union it is prepared to work with it to address concerns that may have resulted in the island being included on a new list of global tax havens. Prime Minister Alan Chastanet says he was awaiting correspondence from the EU to determine reasons for the unfortunate posting and ways in which possible amendments can be made. St. Lucia is among 4 CARICOM countries named in the new list of global tax havens. Well, the other Caribbean countries are, as you heard before, Barbados, Grenada and Trinidad and Tobago. EU finance ministers who met in Brussels yesterday said the new list was drawn up after 10 months of investigations by EU officials. Speak Out St. Lucia, an organization advocating against child molestation, rape and incest, has welcomed news of the planned sex offender registry. The organization has long lobbied for a system to monitor convicted sex offenders.
Speak Out St. Lucia SOS says it's pleased with Prime Minister Alan Chastanet's announcement about the government's decision to implement a sex offender registry in St. Lucia. The Prime Minister's comments comes on the heels of a national crime symposium spearheaded by Minister of National Security and Leader of the Opposition, Philip J. Pierre. Speak Out St. Lucia believes the registry is a critical tool in fighting these serious crimes in St. Lucia. SOS founder Norbert Williams is now reportedly an aide in the office of the Prime Minister. He says this development is very significant.
This is extremely important because we have noted over time the number of offenses which have been reported in St. Lucia. And I can tell you, based on my own connection to these situations, that it is a huge problem in St. Lucia and in the Caribbean. The implementation of the registry will go through its processes. It'll have to go to the Attorney General. The necessary laws and amendments will have to be made. And an announcement I expect will be made when these things are done and when it will be ready to be implemented. Of course, we have to realize that a sex offender registry is only part of the tool chest of what the government and the people of St. Lucia have in combating crime and combating particularly domestic sexual abuse and rape in St. Lucia.
In a statement issued on Tuesday, the group reminded the public that back in March 2016, Speak Out St. Lucia called for a national strategy on crime that included the protection of victims of sexual crimes and the institutional framework to ensure due process in the courts. But what about the possible discrimination faced by convicted sex offenders struggling to reintegrate into society after serving time?
What I can tell you is, if you don't want to end up on the sex offender registry, you don't rape little children. You don't rape people.
Well, health ministers from the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, or OECS, have agreed to closer collaboration on health matters. This is in light of the recent hurricanes that have emphasized the inequality of access to emergency services in the sub-region. A statement issued at the end of the 4th Council of Ministers of the Eastern Caribbean States noted that the meeting had agreed to the Fort-de-France Declaration outlining 10 commitments to foster regional solidarity in health. Well, the Guyana government says it has provided $32 billion to the state-owned sugar company Gaisuco since coming to office in 2015. Agriculture Minister Noel Holder told the National Assembly the David Granger government is also providing the corporation with just over $6 billion in 2018 and a further $2.3 billion in 2019. Mr. Holder told legislators while a $12 billion capital investment will be required over the next 3 years to ensure the sugar production targets are met, there has not been any positive impact on the financial state of the Guyana Sugar Company. Well, Mr. Holder says cane farmers will account for over 50% of the canes supplied to the factory, and every effort will be made to increase this proportion. Over to Antigua now. A clinical psychologist says self-cutting is a big issue that's now taking root, especially among females. Fiona Charles Richards says many young people resort to this self-mutilation as a means of dealing with depression and other psychological issues. At least 3 young people committed suicide in that country this year. Ms. Charles Richards wants parents to be more vigilant and look for early underlying symptoms, which denotes that something is wrong with their child. She says there are many depressive symptoms which often manifest in a change of behavior. Well, sports news is up after the break, but before we get there, here's a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Drivers should only emerge from a major stop onto a secondary road when it's absolutely safe to do so, as the speed and distance of an approaching vehicle can be easily misjudged. Cooperators General, promoting safety on our roads.